Ms. Cobden, thanks so much for being here. Welcome back to Power Play.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we know what we saw from the U.S. president today, and we know that it doesn't really impact the steel industry. But how are you feeling when you consider what we got from the U.S. Supreme Court and the response from the White House?
Yes, I mean, from my perspective, we knew it could go this way, and we knew that just as we saw President Trump was quickly able to say what his next steps would be, we anticipated that the White House was doing their homework of what they would do to put in place should there be a negative decision out of the Supreme Court.
The president has been quite clear on what his goal is, especially when it comes to the steel industry. Yesterday, he was even at a manufacturer in Rome, Georgia, and he was talking about how well everything's going because of his tariffs, because of the 50% tariffs, notably on Canada as well. Do you feel that because he continues to talk that up, that those tariffs, those 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, are here to stay?
Well, listen, I can tell you that what we're doing, we are pivoting away as fast as we can to the kind of north-south trade, moving to more trade within our domestic sort of, the country, Canada, east-west trade as we call it. And we're doing that because we have no clear line of sight on when the 232 tariffs will be addressed, if ever. Now, we do expect the Canadian government to seek these tariffs being addressed as we do as the CUSMA review takes place, which is ongoing, is starting, and it's going to likely be ongoing for some time. But that is what we see as being absolutely essential, that the 232 tariffs aren't forgotten. Our sector, as well as many other strategic sectors in Canada, are facing extremely damaging tariffs from the United States. I can't even imagine contemplating a review that just sort of overlooks that tariff regime. The review must address these tariffs.
But when you consider how he talks about those tariffs and how he says they are good for American steel, do you have any hope that they're actually going to be removed? Well,
the proof will be in the pudding, and I think the strategy we have taken as an industry from the get-go has been to meet the United States on approaches that essentially, we understand the diagnostic of what he's worried about. He's worried about overcapacity of steel that's going on globally.
But he also wants to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.
Yes, he does.
And essentially out of Canada.
Well, yes. So essentially, though, on steel trade, he wants Chinese steel out of the market. Well, we've addressed that. He wants for offshore imports out of the market. Canada's addressed that. Our measures that were announced at the end of November are actually working quite well. I see us being our government being in a very strong position to say to the president, we have done an equivalent outcome of regime to yours. And so, therefore, we are stronger together combating this global overcapacity.
But does he want Canadian steel? It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, he may not want it, but they're 26 million tons of steel short. And if they're going, right now, the big winners of the tariff policy out of the United States has been offshore steel. So the question becomes, do we want to solidify a strong North American steel trade against the non-market economy and state-owned enterprises that are out there in steel that are dumping into both of our markets? Fundamentally, we share the same concern. So I feel like our strategy has been, if we fundamentally address the concern as well, then that gives us a bridge for conversations. As you know, this has been a long road, though. It's been 9 or 10 months of these tariffs, and there's been on-again, off-again talks. We remain adamant, frankly, and insistent that this be a topic of priority for the Canadian government into USMCA discussions.
Are you sure that it is at this point? Because when we hear about their discussions, steel isn't always number one on the list.
I do feel that the Canadian government takes the plight of the steel industry domestically very, very seriously. They have done a significant amount of policy change, trade measures by Canadian policies, et cetera, to help our industry, and all of that takes time. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that we actually have felt, a lot of positive momentum to try to support the sector. So we do feel like, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the other 232 sectors, sectors, but I think that the government understands the crisis that we're in. The question just becomes, when will we see the 232 tariffs get discussed, and when will that opening be? And I know we need to be strategic on when we push for that, but my only point is we ultimately have to get there.
I only have about a minute left or less. As you'd mentioned, the Canadian government announced a number of measures to help support steel and the steel industry in Canada, including a Buy Canadian provision. Is it working quick enough, in your opinion?
So the thing that's working faster are the trade measures at the border. So that's seeing a drop of imports coming into the country, which frees up space for us to supply more. But they don't offset the dramatic losses that we have had in shipments to the United States. We're talking a very high volume of trade between Canada and the United States that has significantly declined.
So do you need more and faster from the Canadian government?
Well, frankly, we need to build those new customers as quickly as possible, and so that's why our job now is to enforce those measures, for us to build those new customers, and frankly to continue to see whether there's more that we can do in those measures themselves.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
Catherine Cobden, the CEO of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.